All right, guys. So I have a lot of anamorphics. Anybody who's been following me for a while, you guys saw me slowly progress into an obsession. And the S5 2X, this is pretty much the only camera on the market that's below $2,200, below $5,000, that has proper full anamorphic support. This is the only camera that does everything that we need when it comes to anamorphic shooting. So, well, correction, there are some cinema cameras out there, but they're not this type of form factor. So basically, you still have to rig those cameras out to where I don't really need a cage on this. I can literally just slap an anamorphic onto here and it's good to go. I need to put a disclaimer. While this is sponsored by LUMIX, don't be fooled. You guys have seen on my channel, I've been using this camera like crazy. I've become obsessed with this camera, and you guys will soon realize why. If you're getting into anamorphics and you're starting to, drink the anamorphic Kool-Aid and see why it's so magical and why it can help you and up you up to the next level and inspire you to get out and shoot more, you guys will soon realize this is it. This is it. Let me show you the anamorphics I have right now and show you why they're so versatile and why, we need help. Shout out to Atlas. They gave me some long-term loaners on a set of Mercuries. That lens covers full frame and it's a 1.5x stretch. This is all important. Stay with me here. From there, we have something like this. This is the Blazar Remus. This is also a full frame 1.5 anamorphic. Next, we have something like this, the Laowa Nanomorph Zoom. This is a Super 35 1.5x anamorphic. Then we have the Viltrox Epic 35mm. This is a 1.33x full frame anamorphic. And then this is my latest addition right here. This is the DZO Pavo 65mm. This is Super 35 2x anamorphic. There's so many freaking options out there. And a lot of the cameras are starting to bring support to anamorphic. They're kind of just like barely doing it to where they could say they have anamorphic support, but in reality, they don't have anamorphic support. Let's go over what about this camera actually gives us the ability to actually shoot anamorphic. So the first biggest feature on this camera that no other camera pretty much does in this form factor and price range, open gate. And not just 3x2 full frame open gate, which is insanely unique, but also Super 35 4x3 open gate. Why is open gate important for anamorphic? So before I go over the Super 35 4x3 mode on this, I'm gonna put an Atlas Mercury on there, just so I can show you guys why 3x2 mode is so important. We are on the Atlas Mercury full frame 1.5x anamorphic lens. Right now, we are in the DCI mode. This is basically what any camera will look like that doesn't have full frame open gate. You see it looks just fine, but I'm gonna go and put it into the 3x2 mode and pay attention to the vertical up here. You see when I go into the 3x2 mode, look at all the extra height that we're getting there. I'm gonna go back and forth and you guys can see your cameras are chopping off all that top and bottom for your anamorphic there. So some people might be like, well, that doesn't really matter. It does matter because it allows you to get closer to your subject. So I'll show you this right here. Let's go to minimum focus on this lens here. So say if I'm trying to get like a portrait shot or something like that, and say, you might do a 17:9 final deliverable or final 2:4 or whatever. Like you can imagine if you're trying to frame someone's full body on this, you're gonna, have to pull back more. When you pull back more, you're gonna lose some subject separation. Versus getting the full 3x2 readout, you're gonna be able to get closer and increase that separation. Now, where open gate becomes very important is on 2x anamorphic lenses. So let me throw on 2x on. So for our 2x full frame anamorphic lens, we're gonna use the Blazar Kato 85mm. These things aren't even out yet. They will be soon, stay tuned. Now let's go through this lens. So in order for me to properly show this off, obviously I have to go and put it on 2x, because now we're on 2x. So this is where the bigger issue comes in with normal cameras. With normal cameras, again, this is in the DCI 17:9 mode here. You see how thin of a strip we're getting here. This is unusable. Any other camera that I use and I'm trying to do 2x, it's almost useless for them to put 2x DESTRETCH in their cameras because this is unusable. Like this is a nightmare. Even on a 5-inch external monitor, this is a nightmare. Even on a 7-inch monitor, this could be a nightmare. Now I'm gonna go in and let's go into the 3x2 full frame mode here. you see that little bit, it makes a big difference. It makes your life that much more easier. So in order to show the bigger issue here, I'm going to go and put on frame markers here. So you can see that green marker there, that's going to be our actual final crop and post. That's basically, you know, every movie you go and see that's an anamorphic or they crop for anamorphic, that's the crop there. So this is the other giant issue with this. We're back in the DCI full frame mode here. Again, this is every other camera that doesn't have full frame open gate and you're using a 2x anamorphic lens on there, this is what you're going to get. And then in post, when you go and crop it to your standard anamorphic crop, you're losing all of this resolution, which is fine. And you know, you could go and crop in and you could like do a digital pan or you could pan around and everything. But again, this is just a nightmare. Like we're just like, this is pointless for us to even film like this and to have to go in and then crop in and just do, it's a nightmare. So again, when I go and do that 3x2 mode, you can see we still have to crop some of the sides out here, but it's way less. We're losing way less resolution. So again, we're getting more viewable resolution on the back of the monitor, making it easier for us to use. And we're also getting resolution on the top and the bottom. So you're getting more of the character out of the anamorphic lens. Now let's go into Super 35 anamorphic. I'm gonna go over Super 35. This is pretty much my new favorite lens. Super 35 2x anamorphic. But the special thing about this lens is one of the common things with anamorphics is their minimum focus is around 2.5 to like 3.5 feet. So you have to go and get diopters. I have some great diopters. I'll be doing a video on those soon. But this lens, what's so unique about this is this goes down to like 1 feet, like 1.1 feet or something like that. So essentially it's like a macro anamorphic lens, which there's really nothing else out there like that. That's not like $60,000. But anyways, that's the lens we're going to use for the Super 35 portion of this. Also guys, just to show you, that's it at minimum focus. Again, there's no other anamorphic lens that can really do that, especially at this price point. Really cool. Anyways, so even before we go through the Super 35 modes, I'll show you what we're getting in full frame. So again, any of your full frame cameras that don't do open gate, you can actually use most Super 35 anamorphic lenses on there because as you can see, it's cropping enough of the top of the bottom to where when you go and do that crop and post, you're cropping out all the vignetting. So again, this is just proof that your full frame cameras aren't giving you the full benefit of full frame anamorphic. And then when we go to the 3x2 full frame mode, we're still getting some clearance, but you can see we are getting some vignetting in there. So now this is a similar crop that you're gonna get on any of your APS-C cameras. Once again, we're getting the same annoying thing to where you see this is gonna be our final 2, 3, 5 crop and like traditional anamorphic crop that you have to do in post. So you're literally throwing out all this resolution. We're cropping in more than APS-C is. Like we're losing resolution and we're losing crop factor here. And you know, the more you crop into your image, you know, the more quality you're gonna lose. Now what LUMIX has done that's insanely unique here is they're giving us a 4x3 mode. So you can see this is your standard APS-C size sensor and a 2x anamorphic. But then in the Super 35 4x3 mode, you can see all that extra height we get there. So look at like the cactus there. Again, in every other camera, you're gonna lose all that resolution. But then in the 4x3 mode, you see we're getting all that additional height there. And then on top of that, you can see the crop and post that you have to do. You're barely having to crop out any of the edges there. So on this camera, you're getting a higher resolution than a standard APS-C size camera. So again, guys, this is what's so freaking unique about this camera. You can imagine if you're trying to do run and gun filmmaking and you don't want to deal with an external monitor, with this camera, you can definitely monitor off the back of this within that stretch. If you are someone that's going to do that kind of filmmaking, I suggest to get 1.5x anamorphic because you can see even in the Super 35 4x3 mode, you were almost getting like a standard 17:9 type readout here. This camera is amazing for doing anamorphic run and gun filmmaking. So the second biggest feature is internal DESTRETCH. This is huge. Now, again, a lot of cameras are starting to get internal DESTRETCH, but you know, they'll give us 1.33 and then 2x and then nothing in between. So like all my 1.5x anamorphics, which I prefer over 2x for a lot of the stuff I do, just because, you know, on 1.5x, you can still use it for digital crops, and it's just a lot easier to use it for, you know, the type of stuff that we're shooting. And so all right off the bat, those cameras, I'm just like, well, those cameras are useless because I can't de-stretch. Then a lot of people are like, well, you could just get an external monitor, which is true. So what's different about the S5 IIX versus other cameras? They're giving us all of the Anamorphic's de-stretch options, all of them. So no matter what anamorphic lens you choose to invest in, you're going to be able to de-stretch it in this camera. Again, the magic of this is I can rig this out with no external monitor, and I can use it like a lot of us do in run-and-gun situations when it's just a camera, a lens, and just using the on-camera screen. It's so weird just being able to use anamorphic in that way. Again, majority of other cameras out there, you can't do that. Now let's get into number 3. And again, all these are ginormous things that basically make this camera the GOAT when it comes to anamorphic. IBIS. So all the higher end, again, $10,000 plus cinema cameras out there that do have really good anamorphic support don't have IBIS. So the big thing with IBIS is if I have a rig that's all, you know, rigged out like this, and weight is kind of the trick to killing the micro shakes and kind of giving you that more cinematic look because there's more weight to it. But when you're using lighter setups like this, you know, you get a lot more of the micro shakes and you get more of that, you know, cheap handheld look. So with IBIS kind of takes all those micro jitters out, and pretty much everybody knows LUMIX right now has the best IBIS out there. They take it up one more notch from that. They give us anamorphic IBIS. So if you go and slap on a 1.5 or 2x anamorphic on any of your cameras that do a 16:9 readout and has IBIS, you'll quickly learn the IBIS F's up the anamorphic. The reason being, sensors read out vertically. Okay, this is something one of the engineers at LUMIX actually taught me. Sensors read out vertically. So even if you crop the sides off the sensor, you know, you're not really gonna get any more speed out of that because it still has to vertically go through there. So when you put IBIS and then you put anamorphic de-stretch on there and you get any rolling shutter on there, the IBIS is gonna make the anamorphic look really wonky. It's a really bad issue. On majority of the cameras, again, before I had the S5 IIX, I would just have to kill IBIS because it's unusable in anamorphic. I don't know what the heck LUMIX did to pull this off, but they have custom anamorphic IBIS modes. So basically, all the de-stretch options in the camera, you can also go into the IBIS and you can set the de-stretch to the IBIS as well. And what that's going to do is basically kill any possible issue that you might have with the anamorphic, because you know it's trying to cancel that out at the same time. That's what's cool about IBIS. So again, those 3 things, pretty much no other camera, once again, in this price range in a mirrorless camera can do any of that, which is like just kind of mind-blowing. Now, some of you guys still might be like, well, I can still use my other cameras, blah, blah, blah. Here's the big thing for me. With this, you know, I'm able to get a little $40 suction cup mount, put it on my Bronco, de-rig all this, and just put, you know, and just put something like this, the Blazar Remus on there, throw it onto there, insanely light. I'm able to de-stretch on camera, turn the IBIS on, get the actual full usage out of it, full vertical height on the sensor, and get these shots that, you know, people might think there's a team behind it. Again, I used to do similar things in the past, but it was just always a nightmare. None of the cameras out right now really, you know, are taking care of anamorphic shooters. And now we have all of these affordable options coming out, and even more. Some crazy stuff in the works that I can't talk about yet. But I'm telling you, in the next year or two, people are going to be demanding for features like this, and LUMIX already has them. These things are pretty much the main reasons why when I started to use this, I was like, this is replacing everything right now. So if you're an anamorphic fiend like me, this is the only option we have right now. You know, there's other cinema cameras out there, but you know, with cinema cameras you have to rig it out. And, you know, there's always workarounds with it, and they're bigger and they're heavier. This is such a unique piece of kit here. And it's really changed the way I do filmmaking, which I think is the most important thing. Especially, you guys see it here on my channel. You can rewind back to before I had this camera. You know, the videos might look okay. And, you know, I might have dabbled in anamorphic. But pretty much now, you guys will see a lot of my stuff is shot in anamorphic. And for me, I think it really makes my work stand out. I feel like, you know, it kind of adds an extra bit of oomph and magic to the imagery. That's kind of the whole point behind anamorphic. So like, shout out to the LUMIX team and the engineers for, you know, being on top of all this and giving us all of this support. Like, I don't know who it was who started all of it, but you could tell they were a true anamorphic lover. And I know a lot of you guys are going to be becoming anamorphic lovers here because of the stuff that's going to be coming out and the stuff that is already out. Yeah, it just does exactly what I need, and it stays out of my way. It's insane.